Happy What Channel is True TV on day to all of you that celebrate. Welcome on into a live edition of Falcons Today. First day of the madness. Everyone's bracket's busted. No one cares about your bracket. But we do have some really fun storylines and segments and videos to get through on today's show. But first off, if we do care about your bracket, it'll be for the next 30 seconds while I ask, who do you have winning your bracket? We have producer Cullen with us today. Cullen, I want to ask you a question on the spot. I know that Cullen, a UNT North Texas grad, is not a perennial March Madness dominant guy, but do you think you want to hear someone say they picked your school to win the tournament? Or is that the last thing you want to hear from people?
Oh, last thing.
I don't want
anybody touching my school. I don't want anybody near it. Stay the F away.
And here's why, too. If your school most likely inevitably loses, someone's going to text you going, dude, my bracket's busted. In that moment, let me just say, the last thing I care in the world is about your bracket. 100%. So who do you have winning your bracket? We do have, I think, a first-timer in the chat right now. Matthew Peterson fan. I've got a doppelganger, or I've got a stalker, an online stalker. I'm very honored. Appreciate... I guess the fandom. I don't know what to say. I'm somewhat starstruck right now. Lee Johnson, I don't understand the poll. Is a 1 or 2 seed going to lose in the round of 64 in March Madness right now? Let's see. Diego says UConn. Who do you guys have winning your bracket? Let me know. I've got Houston cutting down the nets, taking down UConn. Let me know who you guys have winning your bracket, though. In the meantime, shout out your city for me. We will be talking about Jamal Adams. We've also got a really fun segment planned today. We're doing a deep dive on a very insightful article that Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated, which, is he still working there? I thought that died. I don't really know what happened. Is Albert Breer like the only guy in the office now? Like,
He might be.
maybe like only his key card works. Like he walked in and like no one else's punch code worked. He wrote a very detailed article about what went down for Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta instead of Minnesota. And I wanted to share that with you guys. I thought you might get a kick out of it as we kind of find ourselves in that kind of dip from free agency and until the NFL draft. All right, where's everyone though? Jason and Alan are in Houston. What kind of bear is best? Well, there's basically 2 schools of thought. False. Black bear. Well, that's debatable. The official Claude, Atlanta, Twin City, Georgia, Allen's in Tifton, Georgia. Jalen, which shirt is this? I think it's the shirt. No, I think it's a shirt your mom gave me. I got a bunch of like Falcons gear for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
From, my girlfriend's parents and grandparents. So they just decked me out in Falcons gear. Who doesn't like gear for Christmas? Okay, Kennesaw. We've got Southern Georgia from Cujo, San Diego from Jason, Prince in Augusta. I've got Complete the States, as always, across the pond in the UK. All right, should the Falcons sign Jamal Adams, the one-time All-Pro, Pro Bowl safety, the guy that was traded for 2 first-round picks and then just completely stunk it up and couldn't stay healthy in Seattle? Do you want that guy in Atlanta? I definitely don't want Jamal Adams for anything more than like $4 to $5 million a season. I'm not interested in doing some overpay for what very well could be a washed-up safety, but we'll go through the pros and cons of it. I'm open to the idea of whether it's Jamal Adams or one of these other safeties joining Jesse Bates, because you got to admit, Jesse Bates and another Pro Bowl safety with A.J. Terrell, even if the pass rush isn't all that, no one's getting open with that secondary. So what do you guys think? Alan says no. Ryan says no. Emmanuel says yes. I've got Albany, Georgia here. Tell the dude his green screen isn't working. Oh, Cullen doesn't have a green screen. That's funny. It actually there's not supposed to be a green screen behind him. But I do like how you're looking out for Cullen. No, there's just a naturally green wall that's supposed to be that way. That's actually funny. I thought for a moment my green screen was like, what the hell? Stockbridge, Georgia. Let's see. Robert says no. Melvin says yes. Matthew Peterson fan says no. I like that guy already. Got a pretty good opinion. Yeah, I think that's a smart dude right there. Jamal's a liability in coverage. Lee, you're spot on. That was something that like all the other NFC West coaches picked up on, like Sean McVay, Shanahan. They were like, we're just going to remove the run stopping and pass rushing element of his game and just target him in the air and make his life miserable. Colin's a Seahawks fan. Let me hand the floor over to you.
Well, so just to kind of sum this up, right? So we were in the office, I think it was yesterday, and our 49ers host, Chase, was asking, like, hey, who's got a Deebo Samuel like highlight that immediately comes to their head? Because he was trying to grab like a clip or something,
Yeah.
like one of the shows or whatever. Immediately, the very first one that went to my head is when Deebo beat Jamal Adams over top. I think it was in Santa Clara, and Jamal just got absolutely toasted against Deebo Samuel. And Samuel, he's a beast, but he's
good.
not great of a route runner.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just kind of the end of it. I mean, it's been a bad time for Jamal in Seattle. I mean, he had that great first year where he had like 9 sacks, but ultimately right now, I mean, he's kind of similar to Tyron Smith in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That if you know you're signing him, you're not getting him for 17 games. That's
Yeah.
just, at this point in his career,
No, you're right.
it's not happening.
And I think there are a lot of teams that are okay with that for some veterans.
Some are.
You know, a lot of times you see that when they bring guys in August. They're like, hey, dude, we don't need 17 games out of you. What I need you to do is to give me 12 good games. And if you need a breather because your hammy starts hurting in October, that's fine. We'll shut you down for a month. But we need you back for January. And though, like, I remember listening to something Nick Bosa said once, and he was talking about maybe the 49ers and himself having a bit of a slow-ish start to the year, and he's like, we're here to play till February. It's like, damn, there are some teams that are just kind of operating on a different level. And he was spot on. They played until February. Like, they know what they need to do, but they're not trying to be out of gas by week 18.
100%.
They don't look at the season as 17 games. They look at it as 20 to 21 games.
Yep.
Okay. We do have a mailbag coming up later on in the show, so ask your questions now. Use hashtag Falcons somewhere in the chat. Or if you want to be our first super chatter of the day, we guarantee your question, your take, your comment gets on screen. And if it's a $10 super chat, well, we've got this autographed Michael Vick mini helmet right here. Kind of see the signature on the dome right there, and it's authenticated and all that good stuff. So if you want to come home with this $10 Michael Vick autographed helmet, $10 super chat to enter the raffle. That raffle is going to be next Wednesday. So what we've done is we're doing a month-long thing. Now, we have our shows routinely on Thursdays, but I'm actually off next Thursday, so I'm moving it up one day to Wednesday. So our final show for the month of March will be next Wednesday, and that's when we will do the autographed Michael Vick mini helmet drawing.
Okay.
That sound good? Are we all on the same page?
Sounds good to me.
Am I speaking English?
Yes.
All right.
Also, I saw some fans say they couldn't hear me. Hopefully, I turned the mic up. Sound good?
I think you sound great.
All right.
Okay. Colin's audio, they're on it.
Yeah.
Get Aaron Donald out of retirement. I like to sometimes in the offseason, like, scrape towards the bottom of the barrel for content. When you got to put something out each day, like, you're not going to have home runs every single day. But I don't think I'd even go that far.
Right.
I think I would leave that one alone. I know there's the Raheem Morris connection, but no, I don't think that's really in the cards here. All right. Coming up on today's show, latest news and rumors. We'll talk about what life could have been without Kirk Cousins, as Albert Breer, like I said earlier, did a very in-depth article on how it all went down. And I think you guys might enjoy some of the behind-the-scenes to Atlanta landing its next franchise quarterback, hopefully, if all goes well. And then that mailbag we just talked about, hashtag Falcons, or you can super chat and get on screen for everyone to see. So, without further ado, are we ready to jump into our first segment?
I believe so.
We got 177 people currently hanging out with us, only 29 likes. Can we get 11 more likes? Can we get to 40 likes before we get this plane off the ground? For all my March Madness viewers out there, Illinois has pulled away from Morehead State. They're up 64-41. I do got South Carolina, Oregon on my iPad right now. That feels like it's going to be a dogfight to the last moment. That is 34-29 Oregon at the half. And Dayton, Nevada, 1-point game, but very early in that matchup. So, without like the Duquesne victory over BYU, it's been pretty chalky so far.
Yeah.
I think that's actually been the only upset.
Yeah. I think in terms of seeding.
Like Michigan State beat Mississippi State 8-9.
Well, was Michigan State a 9 or was Mississippi State the 8?
Oh, I think you're right. You're right. So that was an upset.
Yeah.
Michigan State was the 9. Shame.
So
Foul on me. Yeah. So we have
so
2, I
it's
guess, technically. The 11 seeds have a winning record against the 6 seeds since 2010.
Interesting.
Winning record.
Almost at your 11th.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to jump into a live edition of Falcons Today? We're up to 51 likes. We got the green light. Let's get into it. Coming up on today's show, we're going to unpack an ESPN article that linked Jamal Adams to the Atlanta Falcons, kind of run through the pros and cons and whether or not it would be a good signing potentially for Atlanta. But let's get you guys up to speed on what's been going on with Jamal Adams. So he was released by the Seahawks along with Quandre Diggs after 4 years in the Pacific Northwest, where 3 of those 4 were very big disappointments after the Seahawks traded 2 first-round picks for the former Jets safety. Now, injuries have been the biggest killer for Adams. He has played a total of 10 out of 34 possible games the last 2 seasons. He just really hasn't seemed like mentally he's been right in Seattle. Like every time he comes back, I feel like the next day he is in the news for some reason or another. But you can look at his stats over the last 4 years. They're not very good because there's just not been a lot of games being played, right? It's hard to make plays when you're on the sideline so often. His first year in Seattle, 2020, that's when he had a pretty good season for the Seahawks. What do you have, like 9.5 sacks, 9 sacks in that season? Just ridiculous amount of pass rushing from the safety position. I remember when he came out of LSU, like he transcended the position of, oh, safeties can get sacks at this high of a rate too. We have a problem over in New Jersey. But then you look at what he's done from his first few seasons to his last few seasons, right? Goes from getting 21.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 28 pass breakups in 58 games played to 2021, 2022, 2023, 3 seasons playing 22 games. So a little more than just 1 full season. No sacks, no forced fumbles, 8 pass breakups. The production's not there. He is being picked on in coverage like a third grader picking his nose. It is just a bloodbath for Jamal Adams in the secondary. But here's what Bill Barnwell wrote from ESPN. Jesse Bates has 1 safety spot locked down, but 2021 second-round pick Richie Grant regressed badly last season and is entering the final year of his contract. Adams could push second-year safety DeMarco Hellams for a starting role and offer an oft-morebound Falcons pass rush some extra juice as a blitzer. I'm not really on board with signing Jamal Adams because you're not signing the guy that you think you're signing. Like, I don't think that 2019 All-Pro safety is coming out anymore. That was 5 years ago. So unless Raheem Morris feels like he can push the right buttons, this doesn't seem like a signing Atlanta's going to pursue specific to Adams because he's been so injured and he's been so bad, right? I mean, Shanahan and McVay, they have just abused him every single time they've gone up against the Seahawks, targeting him in coverage. He was awesome coming out of LSU. He had a great start to his career with the Jets. That guy's gone. I don't think you're finding that player anymore. So I'm not interested in signing Jamal Adams. Now, I'll turn the mic over to you. Do you think the Falcons should sign Adams? I'm typing in for no. If you disagree, that's perfectly fine. Voice your First Amendment right now in the comment section and let me know whether or not you think Atlanta should do it. Now, I will add, whether it's Adams or someone else, I probably have gotten a little bit too caught up in the Falcons' biggest needs, which were in chronological order, a head coach, a quarterback, and now an edge rusher, that I've neglected the safety position, which I wouldn't say is a glaring need, but it is a sneaky need for the Falcons, right? They've got Jesse Bates there, and he was an All-Pro last year, so you could almost put me next to him, and it's probably going to be one of the better safety duos in the NFL because Jesse Bates is just that good. But DeMarco Hellams did take over as the starter pretty much towards the end of the year from Richie Grant, who I thought was so-so in 2022, and I didn't realize just how bad it got at the end in 2023. I was so focused on just moving on from Desmond Ridder that the second safety was the least of my concerns. But you can look at Grant and Hellams' stats from last season. And, of course, Richie Grant got to play a lot more, so he's going to get more opportunities. And he did make some good plays. Let's not act like he was just dog water the whole year. But DeMarco Hellams, I think from a pure like a coverage standpoint, I mean, just from the preseason, we got a good sense of, like, this guy can play. Like, 7th rounder out of Alabama, he has some playmaking abilities to his game, and I think he's going to find a spot on this roster, and I don't think he's going to sit on the bench all year. So speaking of sitting on the bench, you can look at the snap counts from Richie Grant and DeMarco Hellams in the last 4 weeks of the season. Now, Hellams unfortunately suffered an injury during the Bears game, so he missed all of Week 18, but look at the difference. Like, Grant goes from playing 100% of the snaps the first few weeks of the year when Hellams was a healthy scratch every single week to playing 11%, 38%, 42% in weeks 15 through 17, where Helms is going 94, 96, and then 72, but an injury knocked him out of the game. So my prediction is maybe you see another safety brought in, but I mean, you've got Raheem Morris, a defensive-minded guy. You've got Christian Lake, a DB connoisseur, as your defensive coordinator. And you might have a diamond in the rough here. I know as NFL fans, we are always so quick to just want to replace your guys with a more recognizable name in free agency, when I think the better option here is just to sit back and do nothing. Like, I think Helms can play that job well, and maybe when you get into training camp or maybe even through OTAs and minicamp, if you don't get that sense of confidence, you can turn to the free agent market for a veteran. But I know this isn't the fun move, but I think it's okay to go into the season with Helms as your safety and see if you've got something in this young, much cheaper option than any free agent safety could bring in. More on this, by the way, in a brief moment, but I do want to once again plug the Kirk Cousins jersey. If you want to get your very own Falcons Kirk Cousins jersey, now that he's announced number 18, they'll start shipping these bad boys off the press. So go to chatsports.com/Cousins. I already put that link in the comments and description of today's video. So get yourself a brand new Falcons Kirk Cousins jersey today. You can get it at home, you can get it away, whatever color you want, but you got to use that link to get the best deal possible. So whether it's Jamal Adams or another safety from free agency, I could see Atlanta kicking the tires because you've got a new head coach and new DC that didn't pick Helms themselves, so maybe they're not seeing what we all saw towards the end of last year. Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs, Blackman, I think, is either close or has recently signed with the Niners. Eddie Jackson with the Bears. He was once a really good touchdown scoring safety. Micah Hyde, Nick Scott, Sean Gibson, Kareem Jackson, Terrell Edmonds. Those are some other veteran safeties on the market. If it's not Jamal Adams, keep an eye on Eddie Jackson, right? Ryan Pace, the Falcons director of player personnel, he was the Bears GM for a handful of seasons, and he was a part of bringing Eddie Jackson to Chicago, giving him a big contract extension, and we have seen a handful of Bears players make the migration from Chicago down to Atlanta. It would not surprise me if Ryan Pace tries to bring back one of his favorite players on defense, who, when you look at Jackson's last 4 seasons, they're not what they were when he first came on the scene in 2018 and 19, where he was getting all these pick sixes, all these turnovers, but he unfortunately suffered a foot injury in 2022 that knocked him out for a good portion of the season towards the end after having a really good bounce-back year from his 2020 to 2021 campaigns with 0 interceptions to up to 4. And I thought last year he was a startable player. He just had a big cap hit in Chicago, had a GM in Ryan Poles, I beg your pardon, who did not draft Jackson and was looking for some cap savings, so moved on from Bojack. But I think Eddie Jackson can still start in this league, and I wouldn't be shocked if Ryan Pace kind of bangs the table a little bit to get him and Jesse Bates together, which I got to admit would be a really awesome duo if Eddie Jackson's able to kind of get back to where he was in 2022 and even prior to that, a little bit more recent than Jamal Adams. So pick a safety for me. Would you rather have DeMarco Hellams continue start, or do you want to turn to free agency? Let me know in the comment section below who you'd like to see start at safety next to Jesse Bates. As for the other players that ESPN picked for best fits, I thought you guys might be interested in this in case you don't have the ESPN Plus paywall. David Bakhtiari, they have him going to Pittsburgh. OBJ is going to the Aints. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's a Buffalo Bill. Zeke is going to the Giants. I still think Zeke can play better than people give him credit for. Michael Gallup goes to the Chargers. They need a lot of help at wide receiver. That makes some sense to me. Hunter Renfrow is a Steeler. Ryan Tannehill goes up to the Bears to back up Caleb Williams. Michael Thomas, he leaves New Orleans to reunite with Sean Payton in Denver. Tre'Davious White to the Niners just makes so much sense in my opinion. They have Julian Blackmon staying with the Colts. Calais Campbell not coming back to Atlanta. Again, this is just their best fits, but going to the Eagles. And I could see that actually happening. Howie Roseman's always looking to add more pass rushers. Jadeveon Clowney goes to Miami. Stephon Gilmore to the Ravens. Xavier Howard to the Chiefs. I could see that one happening as well. Steven Nelson to the Raiders. That also makes some sense in my eyes. Justin Simmons, another safety, going to the Bills instead. Donovan Smith to the Bears. Lincoln Tomlinson to the Cowboys. They're not signing anyone. And then Akella Witherspoon over to the Rams. So if you enjoyed today's show, consider subscribing below. If you want more free Falcons news and rumors content here on YouTube, I always appreciate those of you that watch all the way to the end of the video. So if you are a part of the end of the video squad, you kind of know the drill by now. Scroll on down, drop an ATL. All right. 34-29, Oregon over South Carolina, and Illinois has pulled away from Morehead State. It is 78-56. This is maybe my least popular take. I do like a nice upset and a good underdog story. Mm-hmm. I kind of like when the best teams win, though. Yeah. And here's why. When you get Morehead States winning, you just kind of get bad Sweet 16 and Elite 8 matchups. Mm-hmm. I want fucking heavyweights, gladiators. Not what was a fun story in the first week turning into an awful Final Four game because there's a 1 seed going up against a 10 seed. You know what I mean? Like, upsets are fun in small doses.
In moderation.
Yes, in moderation, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's, similar to like, if you're adding salt to like a dish, mm-hmm. or if you're adding like sugar to a cake, like in moderation, hey, it's fine.
Yeah.
Adds a little something, but if you add too much, ruins the dish. Like ultimately, right. We watch sports because, well, for some people it's different than others, but like for me, I want to see the best of the best compete at the highest level. And I want to see whoever gets crowned champion at the end be a worthy champion. Every once in a while, sure, if you want to, someone to sneak in there like a Butler, with Gordon Hayward or, George Mason to go on a late run, right. Sure. But for the most part, give me the best at the final game of the year. Mm-hmm. That's what my take is.
All right. Let's remind everyone, if you want to be entered into the autographed mini helmet for Michael Vick, we're going to be doing that drawing next Wednesday, not Thursday. I'm off Thursday. So next Wednesday, it's a $10 super chat to enter. So we had a winner last week or last month get an autographed Mike Vick jersey. This time we got a mini helmet. So you got to put this bad boy in your man cave, at your office, wherever. It's authenticated, all that good stuff. It's got the whole 9 yards. So it's $10 super chat just to enter. I mean, could be coming home with an autographed piece of Falcons memorabilia. So if you want to support the channel and in the process come with some autographed gear in the process, $10 super chat, by all means, feel free to knock yourself out if you are able to. Okay. Let's see. Justin Simmons too. What is the chat saying here? I've got everybody hates Chris. Solid show.
Yeah.
Solid show. I would take a shot at cornerback Tre'Davious White. I don't hate adding a veteran corner. Like, I do feel like in the offseason we tend, as like fans and whatnot, to be a little bit impatient with the development of players. We're like, if you're not a Pro Bowler your first year, we should start looking for a replacement next year. Yeah. It's like, how about we just like pump the brakes a little bit? Like maybe just let Clark Phillips, develop a little bit in terms of like, and I've been advocating for at least pursuing a veteran corner, but it is good to remind myself like, or maybe you just let your draft picks have a chance to actually do what they're supposed to do, play. We do have a mailbag coming up, by the way, so if you have any questions, #Falcons to enter that mailbag, or you can super chat, and then your question is guaranteed to get on screen during that mailbag. So if you want to support the show and also ask a question for all of our viewers to see, super chat, we guarantee it goes on screen. Otherwise, producer Cullen, he just picks his favorite question. So he may pick yours, he may not pick yours, but use #Falcons in the chat. Don't be afraid. People are always afraid to get in the chat. I know. No one bites in the chat. Just hop in the chat right now. #Falcons if you have a question at all when it comes to free agency, the draft, whatever it may be. #Falcons or super chat. It is 40-34, Oregon over South Carolina. I picked Oregon. Not that anyone cares.
I did too.
Yeah. I view brackets as your fantasy football team. I don't care, but I do kind of care.
Kind of care a little bit.
A little
All
bit.
right, let me ask you this, because we had this kind of small debate. I don't know if you were listening or you were locked in.
Yeah.
How many brackets did you make this year?
I think I made 2.
You made 2. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
respect
here's
that.
why. I make 2 or 3 if I'm using ESPN's app and CBS Sports'. I don't remember to make identical ones.
Gotcha.
But I'll make one on each app and apply them to every single league or whatever or group I join.
Gotcha.
But like if I make one on ESPN and then 2 days later someone sends me a CBS Sports invite, I'm not gonna like reference the ESPN and make sure I make the same picks.
Right.
But I usually I have the same Final Four. But maybe there's a little bit difference along the way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I only made 1. That's just, I feel like once you make your bracket, that's your bracket.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you got to stick to. Some people in the office, not mentioning names, they made like 8.
Yo, that's just criminal. Jeff, great question, but I'm not joking when I say you got to have hashtag Falcons. The reason being is our software is scanning the chat for hashtag Falcons. And if it doesn't have it, then it won't pull it, and then we can't put it on screen. So, Jeff, copy, paste that question again in the chat, but put hashtag Falcons somewhere in your message.
Somewhere.
Beginning, middle, end, doesn't matter where. Are we ready to jump into the next segment on today's video? 198. Oh, we got 69 likes. So no one liked or disliked the video.
Keep it at this.
Just sit right there.
Sit.
It's not good for my YouTube metrics, but that's just the 10-year-old in me coming out. 81-60 Fighting Illini over Morehead State. So that one is over. It's another
shout out
game.
the Illini. I have them going pretty deep, so.
I guess we're gonna put. Oh yeah, put on Nevada Dayton.
Shout out the Flyers.
Okay, here we go. Let's jump into it. So a bit of a unique video on tap for you guys today. We're going to read and react a very in-depth article from Albert Breer about what all went on behind the scenes for Kirk Cousins leaving the Vikings and coming to the Falcons. So we'll be kind of doing a little bit of popcorn reading where I'll read and then I'll react to what was said. And I think there's some really juicy details. And I also think this is a great opportunity to kind of get a peek behind the curtains as to how free agency really goes down in a lot of situations. So there's a lot of reading to go on here, but stick with me, and I think you'll walk away from this video learning a lot more about the whole process of how Kirk Cousins became a Falcon. So let's start with this. Albert Breer wrote, so once the dust settled, Morris and Fontenot directed all those coaches plus assistant GM Kyle Smith and director of player personnel Ryan Pace to aggressively grind through both the college and pro quarterbacks. They wanted to come up with a coherent plan to once and for all plug the hole that their predecessor, Arthur Smith, hadn't over the previous 3 years. I'll pause it right there and say, I'm sure Arthur Smith did try to find a good quarterback, but credit to Raheem Morris, and I got to envision this was a big part of the reason he got the job, was he had a very in-depth plan of, we're not going to mess around with the quarterback position. We're not going to just hand it over to Desmond Ridder, a third-round pick, and hope it goes well. We're not just going to bring Mariota in after not being a starter for multiple years and keep our fingers crossed. Like, it really seems like Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot were going to exhaust every single avenue for improving at the quarterback position. And once they figured out the best way to do it, which was free agency with Kirk Cousins, they were going to pursue that hard. More from Breer. So the ideal fit was a quarterback like Drew Brees, who Fontenot and Pace had grown up with as young Saints personnel men. Interestingly enough, those in the Shanahan tree who were with Cousins in Washington long felt Cousins, under the right circumstances, could be a quarterback who'd mirror Brees in a lot of ways. When I read that, it reminded me of what Raheem Morris said in his press conference about what he looks for in a quarterback, which was elite processors. And that's definitely something Kirk Cousins does well, right? Kirk Cousins has not gotten this far because of his ability to climb the pocket and run for extra yards or an absolute Howard servant arm. No, he is able to read the defense well, and he is good at other things, but I think he's gotten so far in his career because of what he's got going on up here. So looking at that, it's not shocking that they landed at Kirk Cousins as their number one guy. Let's continue reading. So at the end of the deep dive, the Falcons had Cousins as their top veteran target, Tampa's Baker Mayfield after him, and a comfort level with the top quarterbacks in the draft as well. which brought Atlanta to the 2024 Combine in position to investigate a trade up. So one thing that jumped out to me there, and keep in mind we're just kind of hopping around from part to part in this article from Albert Breer, was the Falcons and the Vikings had interest in Baker Mayfield. So there was a lot of interest in Baker after a really strong 2023 season with the Bucs. 4,000 plus yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Now, both these teams had a pretty good idea in mind that the Bucs were going to bring back Baker, which they did right before free agency started. And that was a major reason why you saw Kirk Cousins sign so quickly with Atlanta, right? They weren't going to get Baker. He was number 2 on their list anyway. So they really, really wanted to go all in on Kirk Cousins as soon as possible. So they couldn't get him. Well, they knew their backup was already gone, so they were going to scramble the Jets to plan number C. More from Breer. Inquiries with the Bears, Commanders, and Patriots all at the Combine didn't go very far. None of the 3 were willing to move, or at least not at that early juncture. And waiting for that to change would mean missing the market for veterans, a risk the Falcons were never going to take. Now, those are 2 things that I've been saying for quite some time. One, I said before, and I still believe it today, the Bears, Commanders, and Patriots are staying put at number 3. So for all the discussions about trading up with New England to get Jaden Daniels, it sounded fun on paper, but that was a bad plan A to have, because if New England wasn't going to trade with you and you made that discovery now, you weren't going to get any good quarterback in free agency, and the quarterback you had circled in the draft wasn't going to be available to you at 8. And so now you've left yourself with no backup plan at all. So to me, it never seemed like a viable option to try and trade up and get one of those quarterbacks. And I never felt like Jaden Daniels was going to fall to 8. So I said this for weeks and months ago that to me it didn't seem like the Falcons were just going to wait to the draft and come round 1 of the draft. Fingers crossed New England accepts this trade. Oh, no, they didn't. What do we do now? Like, that just didn't seem like that was something Atlanta would go down. Now, we have more to read from Albert Breer, but we are closing in on 20,500 subscribers, the largest Atlanta Falcons YouTube channel out there. So if you are looking to join one of the fastest growing Falcons YouTube communities, go ahead and do so today, 30 away from reaching 20.5K. Here else is what Albert Breer wrote. The numbers allowed for Minnesota, given how offsets work, to bail out of the deal after a single year without much monetary damage if it drafted a quarterback in April and wanted to fully hand him the keys after the 2024 season. The Vikings' 3-year offer allowed too much wiggle room in 2025 for McCartney, that's Kirk Cousins' agent, liking. That was when the time had come for the 2 to start mapping out the following week. So, in fewer words, Minnesota would not make a contract that had guaranteed money enough to Kirk Cousins and his agent's liking to see him there for 2025. It seems like the Vikings were just not ready to commit to Kirk Cousins beyond 1 season, right? They were happy to give him a big contract, $180 million. But the guarantees weren't going to be there like Atlanta did, $100 million guaranteed, because they wanted to be able to move on from Kirk Cousins if they drafted a rookie and they liked his development and they wanted him to be their starter in 2025. That's what really came down to Kirk Cousins leaving Minnesota for Atlanta. One team wanted Kirk Cousins to finish his career with them. The other team was open to moving on from Kirk as soon as 2025. Cousins wanted to go somewhere where he felt like he could retire with that team when his contract was up, something Atlanta was willing to pay for. More on this. Later that evening, Cousins and McCartney huddled, with McCartney asking for Cousins' permission to move on an offer if it had a second year fully guaranteed and guarantees into a third year. Fontenot's first call just after noon local time on Monday was to Cousins' agent, and it was direct and straightforward. They'd be willing to guarantee the first 2 years of a contract and get well into the $40 million plus range on average per year. They were open to talking about a third-year guarantee. They wanted Cousins, and they were ready to show it. it was all business for Kirk Cousins, right? And it's also something I learned from this article, interesting, how much the agent truly drove this deal for happening. Like, Kirk Cousins was driving from his house or his second home in Michigan down to Georgia to visit his in-laws. He was in Tennessee when his agent called and said, so you're going to be a Falcon because they're willing to give you the contract that we're looking for. Like, it really didn't seem like Kirk Cousins was heavily involved in this process. He had his list of wishes. He gave his Christmas wish to his agent. His agent found a suitor, the Falcons, who were willing to guarantee money into 2025 and even into 2026 with $10 million guaranteed. And that's all Kirk Cousins needed to hear. And he's like, all right, Kirk, I'm going to pull the trigger on this thing. I'm going to tweet it out, and then your phone's going to blow up. And that's exactly what happened. Now, let's just say Kirk Cousins didn't go with the Atlanta Falcons, and Atlanta no longer had $180 million devoted to Kirk Cousins. What was their plan in free agency? Here's what Breer wrote. To prepare for the game of musical chairs, though, the possibility of having a rookie help to inform alternate plans. One would include an expensive quarterback such as Cousins or Mayfield. The other would have been a more economical player at the position, be it a rookie or a vet such as Justin Fields, and more spending on defense with the potential pursuit of stars such as Danielle Hunter and Christian Wilkins. Fontenot took a call from David Mulgeta, the agent of Wilkins, and a text from Zeke Sandu, the agent for Hunter, both of whom told they were expected the bidding on their free agents to get to and probably pass $25 million per year. So what was plan B if Atlanta did not get Kirk Cousins and he said, I don't care, I'll take less money, whatever, I just want to stay in Minnesota? It looks like it was, we're going to go get some defensive dudes. Like, we're going to go get Christian Wilkins. We're going to go spend that money on Danielle Hunter, right? And I don't think that would have been a bad plan B. The way those two players played last season, Danielle Hunter, 16 and a half sacks, top 5 in the NFL, if I remember correctly. Christian Wilkins from the interior getting 9 sacks. Really hadn't seen something like that since Ndamukong Suh left the Lions. And both these guys got contracts in that range, right? Danielle Hunter not quite at $25 million, but he got 48 of it guaranteed. And Wilkins did get between 25 and 30 at 27 and a half. So if you're wondering what was life going to look like if Kirk Cousins stayed in Minnesota, I think one of these two guys would be a Falcon right now. Now, that remains, that leaves one question to be answered still, which is who would be quarterback? Now, we'll talk about that in a second here, but I first want to ask you this. Are you in on Kirk Cousins? Now that it's been some time and maybe you warm up to things as time passes and the initial knee-jerk reaction has subsided, are you in or out on Kirk Cousins? Let me know what your thoughts are down below. The one thing the article never really answered, and I don't know what answer there is to this question, is what was Atlanta's plan at quarterback if they didn't get Kirk Cousins? Because there wasn't a lot of Justin Fields talk in there. And maybe that was plan C all along. Because plan A was Kirk. Plan B was Baker. Was plan C Gardner Minshew? Justin Fields? Was it a Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy? Like, I want to know what plan C was for Atlanta at quarterback, because plan B was always a long shot. Baker wasn't going to leave the Bucs. And lucky for them, they never have to figure out or answer what plan C truly was because they got plan A. But that's the last piece of the puzzle that I want to know the answer to. All right, that will do it for us on a bit of a unique version of Falcons Today, but I thought it would be a good peek behind the curtains, go see Dr. Oz or Wizard of Oz and, figure out how the sausage is made when it comes to free agency and whatnot. If you want, you're more than welcome, of course, to go read the Albert Breer article yourself. It's very long, so I just took a couple of snippets from it to make it more digestible, but it was loaded with really good nuggets as to how free agency works between agents and GMs and whatnot, and how the conversations progress. And I found it very insightful and very, loaded with information to learn from. All right, we got some super chats coming in here. Let's go, boys and girls. Plan C was you suiting up Petey. That's a bad plan. That shouldn't even be Plan Z. That's a bad idea. That's a book of bad ideas, Chapter 1. Complete the States. Is the 18 jersey story a smokescreen? I like where this is going. So, hashtag Tampergate. So, there was the conversation or alleged conversation between Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts about number 8, which players on a roster, in this case Kyle Pitts, they can talk to free agents. Like, they can communicate with them. They can't serve as a mediator for teams and coaches and personnel, right? They can't call Kirk Cousins and say, hey, my coach just said we'll give you $150 million. So it's not against the rules for Kyle Pitts and Kirk Cousins to have a conversation of, if I came to Atlanta, could I have number 8? At least that's my understanding of the rule. So I don't think Kirk Cousins taking 18, it was them trying to maybe just put a little bit of water on the fire that is the alleged tampering that went on for Cousins coming to Atlanta. I think that case is pretty easy to solve. Like, there are cameras at all the facilities. You have the phone records. Did Kirk Cousins come to the facility before he was allowed to? Did he talk to coaches before the legal tampering via phone record? The answer is yes to those questions. I don't think the NFL is going to pull back their horses when, well, he picked 18. Like, I don't know, guys. I don't think he did anything. So I don't think it was a smokescreen, but I do like the theory though. Complete the States with another super chat. Let's go. Is Dallas Turner at 8 a reach? Yes or no? I don't think it's a reach. I think Dallas Turner in other drafts would go top 5 if you didn't have 3 quarterbacks going top 3. I mean, just think about like last year's draft, right? Last year's draft, we had Bryce Young go first overall, then C.J. Stroud, then Will Anderson, and then Anthony Richardson,
Devin Witherspoon.
And then, like, I think you could have seen Dallas Turner go 4 or 5 in those spots. But you've got, like, you can make really good arguments that Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Marvin Harrison, if they went in different drafts, could all be the first overall pick.
100%.
Right? Marvin Harrison is one of the best wide receiver prospects we have seen in a long time. Drake May looks to be the real deal. Like, if Bryce Young can go first overall, I don't see why Drake May couldn't be first overall as well. And then there's Caleb Williams, who will go first overall. So I think for Turner, it's just a little bit unlucky that he happens to be in a very, very top-heavy draft class. As always, I do appreciate the question, and we will include both of those super chats in our mailbag. So get those questions in, by the way. Mailbag is next up on the show here. So if you have any questions at all related to the draft, free agency, whatever it may be, hashtag Falcons in the chat, or like Complete the States, you can super chat, and we guarantee your question gets on screen for everyone to see.
Yeah, because I was just looking through some, like Emmanuel. That's a great question, but we need you to use hashtag Falcons.
Jaden and Emmanuel with 2 really good questions.
Yeah.
Copy and paste that and put hashtag Falcons. And then you're on screen.
And then you're on screen. Because I'm looking and I'm like, we're about to have a really short mailbag. So get these questions in there so that you can be on the show. And if you want to make sure that you're in there on the show, I mean, hey, we just show the super chats.
Yeah, $10 super chat, and you can get, or you will get entered into the autographed Michael Vick helmet giveaway, which we're going to do next Wednesday. So tune in next Wednesday. $10 super chat if you want to come away with a signed Mike Vick helmet and be entered into that giveaway. Okay. Hashtag Falcons, though.
Yep.
I'm count. Oh, there's Emmanuel. That's one. That's one, baby. And then Jaden Henry. I'm going to call you out by name right now. I know you mean Max Crosby. Don't worry. Copy and paste that bad boy. Toss it in there.
Yep.
And then we can get into a mailbag. Score updates. Oregon. They are throttling South Carolina. 59-43. I call that a mile away, and it's not just because Oregon historically, like with their coach, has never lost in the first round of the tournament.
Crazy stat, by the way.
South Carolina, massive overachievers this year.
Yes.
They were picked to finish last in the SEC by the media before the season started. Yep. They get a 6 seed. Awesome story. You kind of felt like they would run out of gas at the end. Like, all right, good starting point, but hey, our first $10 super chat. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. First $10 super chat. Okay, 1 second. Just looking something up right now. When did Kirk come to the facility? When did he allegedly come? Or when did he factually come? That sounded weird. He definitely came to the facility after 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday when the new league year started. Because anything before that would have been a violation of the tampering rules, right? You can talk to teams during then, but you can't actually go in for in-person visits. You can't do medicals, which I'm sure the Falcons wanted to peek at his Achilles before giving him that contract. Did he come before 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday? That's kind of the million-dollar question here. And if the answer is yes, I think Atlanta's losing a draft pick. I think they're losing a second or a third.
Could be
you just hope it's not a first. But the Dolphins lost a first. So they could be in deep water here. I'm not going to lie. If they do get caught, it's got to be the dumbest tampering. Like, you didn't even try and hide it, really.
You almost you expose yourself.
Yeah, you couldn't have met down the street or something. I don't know. Like, you had to walk through the front door and there's a camera.
Yeah.
Like, there's no back door or something if you get caught. That just seems like.
Couldn't give security off at the day, or something.
There are no teenagers that work there. They have to hire a bunch of teenagers that have fake IDs that know how to work the system. Yeah. Like guys that, know how to get around the law a little bit.
A little bit. All right.
Okay. Funeral services. Thank you so much for your super chat. You are entered, by the way, for this autographed Michael Vick helmet giveaway, which we're going to do next Wednesday. But you already know that, and you're definitely tired of me saying that. Should we jump into mailbag?
I think we got some.
We got some more questions?
We got some more questions.
Yeah, I like it, boys and girls. I love it. I'm seeing hashtag Falcons all over the chat. Yep. Oh, we're ready to go. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
One last time, if you do think of a question and you want to guarantee that it gets on screen, super chat, and we'll toss your question on next, and you get to cut the whole line. So it's a pretty good deal in my eyes. Oh, Casey Hicks with the $10 super chat. Let's include that question in the mailbag. Yeah. Let me actually do a tiny bit of research on this question because I don't know off the top of my head, but that's not a bad idea. You want to get some shout outs in the meantime?
I can do that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've got my answer already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to everybody who used hashtag Falcons. Again, you could still, while we're even recording, send in hashtag Falcons, and who knows, if I like the question enough, you might get it on the show. So use hashtag Falcons. Doesn't matter if it's all caps, lowercase, correct casing, doesn't matter. We'll make sure that we'll see your question and try to get you on the show. But if you're just like Casey or funeral services or complete the states, chances are you're getting on the show.
All right.
I don't make the rules here, but that's just how it goes.
Here we go. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome on in to a Falcons Today mailbag video. It was filmed during our live show Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, although next week it's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, but that's just a one-off. So let's get right into the show with our first question coming in from Trent47. What do you think about signing Justin Simmons to complete the secondary? We did a video on Jamal Adams being linked to Atlanta by ESPN, but I think Justin Simmons is one of the most underrated, underappreciated safeties, just overall defenders in the National Football League. Guys, over the last 4 seasons, he has how many interceptions? 16? 19? He leads the NFL in picks since he entered the league in 2016. He was a cap casualty for Denver. They had to trim the fat because they took on an $85 million dead cap hit from Russell Wilson, and the safety position as a whole was being gutted across the league. If Justin Simmons walks into this Falcons secondary, it's going to make it 2 times better. I do think DeMarco Hellams has some upside to his game, but if you can get Simmons on a pretty cheap contract, put him with Jesse Bates, that's an all-pro safety tandem right there. I mean, that's a defense that needs no pass rushers. There's just no passes going to be completed down the field because of those duos. So I would be very on board with a Justin Simmons signing. I do like Hellams, like I said, but I can't overlook one of the best safeties in football. So would you sign Justin Simmons? Yes or no? Let me know down below in the comment section. I think most fans tend to have a quick trigger on pulling the plug on first and second year guys, and Hellams I think has some really good room to grow into, but man, Justin Simmons is on a tier of his own, and I think him and Jesse Bates together would be unstoppable. Complete the states. Is Dallas Turner at 8 a reach? Yes or no? I don't think it is. I don't think Dallas Turner is one of the most marquee edge rushers we've seen coming into the draft. He's not a Myles Garrett first overall shoe-in, Aiden Hutchinson, Travon Walker. But I also think, unlucky for him, he's in a draft class that has 3 really good quarterbacks, and those always take priority over edge rusher. And Marvin Harrison, who all these guys could be first overall picks if they went in different drafts. So I think Dallas Turner at 8 might be looked back at as a steal, actually. I like Turner. I don't love Turner, like head over heels, think he's a surefire thing. But I think Atlanta's just got to take the chance at the edge rusher spot since they can never get that down. Diego, if Kirk wins us a Super Bowl, would you put him at first for all-time Falcons QBs ahead of Ryan and Vic? That's a tough question. I'm going to go with no. I'm still going to say Matt Ryan. But, I mean, that's going to sound awful right now because the guy would have won a Super Bowl. I also like that, by the way, the Falcons put a really big fat incentive in his contract if he wins this Super Bowl, which the Vikings did too, but he had to be the MVP of the Super Bowl to get that money. So some broke bitches up in Minnesota. Credit to Arthur Blank for just saying, if you get us there, if you win us it, I don't care if you're the MVP or not, here's $2 million. That's a good question, though. I'll let the audience have some fun in the comment section with that. I'd go with Matt Ryan still number 1, and then Kirk, then Vic. What are your thoughts on a trade? One last thought on that last question. It's kind of like when you think about the Miami Heat all-time greats. Is LeBron James the greatest Miami Heat player of all time? No, because he was only there for 4 seasons. Like, I want to give credit to the longevity. All right, Jackson. What are your thoughts on a trade back to pick 15 to 18? If Terrion Arnold is available, take him. From the trade, we get a second-round pick. With our 2 second-round picks, take best edge rusher and wide receiver there. I do like Terrion Arnold a lot, so you almost kind of have me sold on that by itself. I'll also add for the pro column for trading back and picking up a second. I mean, there's a chance that Atlanta has some first and second day draft picks stripped from them if this tampering allegations prove to be true. So it may not be a bad idea to stockpile some early picks now because you may not have them in the future. So that may weigh into the decision as well. No guarantee that if you trade back to 15 to 18, Arnold will be there. I mean, what if he goes to the Raiders at 13, for example? So, or the Broncos at 12, or the Vikings at 11. So I wouldn't put all your eggs in that basket. As for finding an edge rusher and wide receiver in round 2, you can find some good wide receivers in round 2. Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown. Edge rushers in round 2, we've talked about this before on the channel. There's a much bigger drop-off between wide receivers and edge rushers in rounds 1 and 2. Like, there's good wide receivers in both rounds, but the edge rushers really fall off a cliff when you leave round 1 historically. So I'm not too upbeat that you're going to find anyone better than Arnold Ebiketie in round number 2, which, hey, that's not a bad player, but that's not a guy that's going to be the long-term solution at the longest plaguing position in Falcons history. Really quickly, I do want to remind you guys that the Kirk Cousins jerseys are here. So if you want to get a brand new Falcons jersey for the new quarterback and rep number 18, go to chatsports.com/Cousins. Get the jersey today. That way, if you don't get it today and you push it off until the spring and into the summer and whatnot, there could be some back orders. It could take a long time to come over from China. We all know how this works. And then when the first game rolls around, you're rocking, I hope not a Desmond Ridder jersey. So go to chatsports.com/Cousins to get your very own Kirk Cousins jerseys today. Funeral services. When did Kirk come to the facility? Officially, after 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday of the first day of the new league year. Allegedly, before that. Like, at least that's a possibility, right? That the Falcons brought him in. He kind of slipped up in his press conference and said, when I met with the trainer. Well, how'd you meet with him? You couldn't have met with him before Wednesday unless you had an illegal, doctor check, medical check on your Achilles, because the Falcons wanted to know how that thing was looking before they gave you all that money. So that's what the NFL is investigating right now. Casey Hicks, first-time super chatter. Thank you, Casey. How long do these tampering investigations usually conclude? The Dolphins one went for 6 months. That's the most recent one, and that involved a $1.5 million fine, and a loss of a first-round draft pick. But I think it was a little bit more severe than the Falcons, right? They had allegations of not going through the Rooney process correctly, right? When they moved on from their head coach, Brian Flores and whatnot. I don't remember the exact details of it, but that was an element of it. And then Sean Payton and Tom Brady tampering stuff. So they had a couple of infractions. So hopefully it's not as severe as it was for Miami for Atlanta. Jeff, next one up on the show. Do you think the Falcons will draft a QB in the later rounds and say goodbye to Heineke? Well, they guaranteed so much money for Kirk Cousins for 2025. That was a huge selling point for Kirk to come to Atlanta was, hey, Minnesota, they may be drafting your replacement as soon as this year, and then they'll move on from you after 1 year. That's why he picked Atlanta, because he wanted to go somewhere that wanted him beyond just one season. What kind of message does that send? I know you're talking about Heineke, but just stick with me for a second here. What kind of message does that send to Kirk Cousins of, hey, we know we just signed you and we made this kind of guarantee and monetary form that you'll be here for more than 1 year, but we're already thinking about your replacement by drafting a quarterback in round 3 or round 4. That may not be a really good first few months and weeks on the job, don't you think? So I don't think Atlanta goes after a quarterback early in this draft at all. Now, when it comes to replacing Heineke, I think they want to keep Heineke for that veteran backup presence because they know they're not going to find one in the draft since they are hitching their wagon to Kirk Cousins for the next 2 to 3 seasons. So you may as well stick with a more sure thing than just turning it over to a 6th-round pick that if he has to step in, you have no idea what to expect. Jaden Henry, why don't we trade back and get Laiatu Latu over Dallas Turner? Latu has Max Crosby and TJ Watt upside. I give credit to you, Jaden, because every single year in the draft, we kind of get these pre-draft rankings of positions in our head. And if you suggest taking someone later in those rankings, you're looked at as a leper. But every single year in the draft, we see guys that go later outperform players that went earlier at the same position. So just surface level, I don't hate you suggesting going after Laiatu Latu over Dallas Turner. I would prefer Turner because you don't find just incredibly freaky athletic players like him that also have production, right? There's always great athletes that enter the draft. Every single year we hear about a guy that's so big and so fast and so strong. He's going to be such a great player. It sounds like a great track star. Football's played with pads, not in underwear. But Dallas Turner has the freaky athleticism. He runs faster than wide receivers, and he also has 10 sacks last year to back it up at Alabama. So I'm going to stick with Dallas Turner, but I don't hate you for having this idea. Complete the States, once again, is the 18 jersey story a smokescreen? So going back to the hashtag Tampergate, did Kirk Cousins take 18 so that it didn't sound off alarm bells that him and Kyle Pitts had already arranged, when I come to Atlanta, can I have number 8, please? I don't think so, and I don't think the NFL really cares about that very much. One, it's not against the rules for Kirk Cousins and for Kyle Pitts to communicate in the offseason. Kyle Pitts just can't serve as a mediator between Cousins and the Falcons coaching staff. And there's very little proof of that, and I don't know how you can find proof unless Kyle Pitts is an idiot and didn't delete text messages. So I don't think it is a smokescreen. I think this is maybe just Kirk Cousins going, hey, dude, I want to be a good new teammate, and I'll pick a new jersey number. That's kind of my best stab at it. Grand Limousine, what's going on? $50 super chat. This was one hell of a limousine. All the Atlanta games will get you there in style. Go Falcons. I love the sell promo right here. For a moment, I thought I was talking about me. I was like, wait, I think this is just an ad right now. So, all right, there you go. You want to go to a Falcons game? Want to go to the Benz in style? They're your people. Mason, when will a trade or move by the Falcons happen time frame wise? Let's just say the next big move would be Hassan Reddick. All right, let's just say that's something the Falcons have circled. When could that happen? It kind of happen at any point now, right? The Eagles are definitely looking for offers, and they want to have a competing offer so they can drive up the price a little bit. But if they don't have any competing offers, it would be in both parties' interest to get a trade done sooner rather than later. Sooner for the Eagles, in this example because then they get the Falcons draft pick and they can start researching who do we want to use with that pick, or do we want to trade that pick up or down? And then good for the Falcons because now they know they have an edge rusher, so they can alter their draft strategy. So when could it happen? I really can't give you a definitive timeline. It could just be any time from the time you're watching this up until – I don't think it would happen that close to the draft. I think if we got to the draft, teams may just play the draft out and see if they get a guy or two that they were hoping to get for in the draft. Maybe in draft trade, though, if Atlanta really wants an edge rusher in round 2, they don't get one, or the guy they wanted goes a pick before them, so they call up Philadelphia and say, we'll give you our pick right now for Hassan Reddick. Jack, what do you think of trading back into the teens and drafting Jared Verse and then trading back into the 20s for A.D. Mitchell? This sounds like a lot of fun, Jack. Don't get me wrong. It does take 2 to trade, and I do think that's an important thing to remember. Of you may like the idea of trading back, and on paper, that may sound like a great idea, but are you going to find someone to trade with? The answer may be no, right? And if you're trading back, it better be for a purpose, right? Because you may just pass on some really good players, and then you don't have another opportunity to trade back again if that was the plan all along. So I do like Jared Verse. I love his story, the way he came from Albany, goes to Florida State, back-to-back 9-sack seasons. A.D. Mitchell looks like he's going to be, I wouldn't say a surefire thing in the NFL, but I think he's going to be a reliable starter. I don't know if he's going to completely turn the position upside down or be a top 5 receiver or anything like that. I don't really see that high of a ceiling for him, but I'm not opposed to this idea. I would just caution you to not get your hopes up because you may not find someone wanting to trade with you. Jordan Grace, Kirk Cousins or Baker Mayfield? Which one would you have preferred for Atlanta? Kirk Cousins, 100%. I think Baker had an awesome season last year in Tampa. That's not a hot take or anything. I do have my own personal just sports theory or belief of if a player has a bad stretch, goes to a new city, and it has a breakout year, they caught lightning in a bottle in that city. If they try and bring that over to another spot, it's not going to continue. I don't have great numbers or facts to back that up, but that's always just been my personal theory of like, whoa, that guy had a breakout season there. Let's bring him on over. Whoa. What's the outlier here? 3 bad seasons before that or 1 good season? Probably the 3 bad seasons. Don't be the team that overpays them for 1 good season. So I would have preferred Kirk Cousins since he had a much better track history before Baker. Clout on 2s. Do you see us making a trade for a star player like L'Jarius Sneed or Reddick? Hassan Reddick, yes. L'Jarius Sneed, low-level rumor from, who was he? Jason LaConfora? I can't remember who it was. Guy from Sportskeeda. Tony Pauline? Reddick. D. Coleman. What is Mike Hughes' future with this team? I think it's a special teamer and a backup cornerback. Maybe compete with Clark Phillips for that CB2 job if they don't target cornerback early in the draft, but I don't think it's a very long-term future. Robert Blackman, call Minnesota for their first 2-round picks to get an edge rusher and a wide receiver. Minnesota got the 23rd overall pick to move up in the draft to get a quarterback. That is very obvious to me. Now, if they can't move up in the draft to get one of the top 3 guys, I would love to see the Falcons and the Vikings swap 8 and 11. Okay. Minnesota gets J.J. McCarthy. The Falcons have Kirk Cousins. We have a true scientific study of which team made the better decision. And Atlanta could still get Dallas Turner at 11 because I think the Bears at 9 want to surround Caleb Williams with a star wide receiver like Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors. I think the Jets are so good on their defense, they'll target offensive line. And then you've got Atlanta at 11, getting Dallas Turner and getting a pick after moving back from 8 to 11. Cody Vines, who do you see the Falcons signing next in free agency? I don't know if I have a specific name for you. I'll give you 2 positions. Safety, if they don't feel like DeMarco Hellams or Richie Grant is ready to be a starting safety this year. And then I think they're pretty good at wide receiver. I mean, they've added a handful of names. Darnell Mooney, brought back Kadero Hodge, Rondale Moore. But Moore's unproven. Hodge is a special teamer. So you're kind of down to really 2 guys, London and Mooney. So maybe another wide receiver like Tyler Boyd. All right, that will do it for us on this mailbag today. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, I invite you to do so. That way you can be a part of future mailbags. Dayton is fucking me. God. Oh my God. Thank you, Flyers. I had a bunch of friends in high school go to Dayton for all week about the Flyers, and they are laying an egg right now. And I picked them to make some moves. Grand Limousine, thank you so much for your super chat. You can kind of tell like when we're in the middle of a cut versus we're outside of a cut, and I don't know. I didn't give you the roses you deserved. $50 super chat. Salute to you, Grand Limousine. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really, really appreciate it.
Shout out to all y'all for getting the questions in too. Y'all came in some good ones today.
Dude, they fucking answered the call.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, the bell rang and they were there.
They were there. So shout out to y'all. What up, Ty Man?
Ty Man, the Buckeyes here. Ty Man's got Purdue. Purdue's just region, the Midwest, is filled with teams that historically have underachieved. My Tennessee Volunteers, Purdue Boilermakers, and the Creighton Jayhawks. Those are your 1, 2, 3.
Those are up there for sure.
And none of them have gotten to the Final Four.
None.
Like, not ever, but in a very, very long time. Tennessee never. Purdue in a very long time. And I don't think Creighton has ever gotten to the Final Four, but someone can fact check me.
Shout out to Oregon also.
Oh.
They're up 13 with 3 minutes left.
Oregon's, yeah, they're getting the job done. I need the Flyers to get their act together.
They're down 10. They got 13 minutes left. They have time, but that's not going to help.
I felt like a bug flew up my nose in that last segment. I'm rewatching Curb Your Enthusiasm right now. You ever watch Curb?
I'm not.
I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. My girlfriend never seen it. Surprised she kind of wanted to watch it, but she loves it. And we just watched the episode where Larry sits on a gerbil and has a tickle in his anus. And I felt like that the whole time for my nose. If anyone's seen Curb, you'll appreciate it. If not, that was just a very weird YouTube line that you heard. Okay. So other scores, let's see. We've got South Carolina trailing Oregon by 13 right now. That game's pretty much over. Green Cat, I'm still perfect. Got Oregon and Nevada.
Okay.
Screw you, Green Cat.
Hey.
I need the Flyers to get it together.
I know. This is honestly one of the best. I was talking about this with one of our other producers here at Chat Sports. Where would you rank March Madness in terms of, like, the first day of March Madness, in terms of, like, sports days throughout the year? Where would you say it ranks?
Okay, so, like, is Super Bowl number 1? You know what I mean? Like, how do you, because it's one game.
It's for me, it's up there. He said that this is the number 1 day. Like, March Madness is, like, the very
Yeah,
first day.
March Madness, like, opening weekend's up there. I'll tell you what, I love the NFL draft.
Yeah, I do too.
I do love the draft. That day is sneaky high up on my list.
Yeah.
Opening day for baseball, I love baseball. It's not high up on my list because the MLB is such an awful product.
They're so bad.
Like, I didn't know the Dodgers and the Padres started their season already. Did you see that?
Yes. So the only reason
What the hell was that?
So the only reason I knew that, my buddy, who's a big baseball guy,
Yeah.
he's a police officer. So, like, he works the night schedule.
Uh-huh.
So he was, like, had the game on, I guess, in some part of his cop car or whatever. But he was tuned in, and he was just kind of, like, sending us a Snapchat, like, 2 o'clock in the morning.
What was Major League Baseball thinking? Could
They're
you
putting on
imagine?
their new biggest star in his new place at the wee hours of the morning.
I think I saw someone say it would be like if Mahomes went to the Cowboys.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
And they're like, hey, your first game is at 2 a.m. in the middle of the preseason in Germany.
Yep.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Apparently, like, allegedly, they were trying to appeal more to, like, you know, that side of the market, because obviously Shohei Ohtani's from.
Dude, that's fine, but don't do it
Yeah.
for the first game of the year.
You're also missing your core audience.
I guess they don't want to have them travel once the season gets underway.
That makes
So
sense.
it's easier to do that now. But I still don't get this.
I don't love it.
It's also strange that these two teams have played 2 games and then they go back to spring training.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
They go into the season with 2 games already done?
I don't.
That
like
just seems dumb. But that's baseball for you.
it. Yeah. Also, they're I forget who's the second pitcher that they got.
Yamamoto?
Yeah, he got lit up in his first start. Did you see? Like, they had to pull him early.
I'm also not even, I think I just said a generic Japanese last name. I said the admiral from the Japanese Navy in World War II, Yamamoto.
That's
But I think that might be him too. I think it's just Johnson, like over there.
But he did not have a great show.
Yeah. Okay. If we get some more super chats, we can keep the show going. Otherwise, though, we do have to turn over the
do.
studio. You guys probably have a good idea of just how the live show scene operates by now. But $10 super chat. Quick reminder here, quick self-plug. If you want to be entered into the Michael Vick autographed helmet giveaway, you can kind of see his signature on top there. It's a nice mini helmet. It's authenticated, the whole 9 yards. $10 super chat supports the show. And you can come away with an autographed Mike Vick helmet. That drawing for the helmet is next Wednesday. Write it down so you don't forget. Like chocolate chips and pancakes and fresh fruit in the morning. Write down so you don't forget. She's mom now, so in that movie.
Shout out to D. Coleman. As a Braves fan, I'm hoping Shohei Ohtani turns out to be a degenerate gambler. LOL, suspended.
So here's the Shohei. If you are a little confused, let me do my best to catch you up on the Shohei gambling drama because I read about it last night, so I would be better informed on it. I feel a little bit bad for Shohei if everything that is being said is true. His translator had a major gambling problem, and he was using an illegal bookie, like your old-style bookie, not DraftKings or anything like that.
Not Prize Picks.
Not Prize Picks, nothing. And he had a gambling problem. He was $4.5 million in the hole, and Shohei was a nice friend and paid his gambling debts.
Two.
He paid two.
Separate.
Two separate.
Two separate.
Now, he paid the bookie directly.
Right.
Which is a little bit fishy because it makes it look like you're the one paying your own debt. Right. Shohei said, I didn't want to give him the money because he was afraid he would use that money to just gamble then.
Right.
You know what I mean? To try and win it all back.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's like, I'm paying it directly and then we're done with it. When it comes to MLB rules, baseball players are allowed to gamble on all other sports. They can't gamble on baseball. Right. This translator says he didn't gamble on baseball. He knew that. He knew that no one within the locker room, players, coaches, managers, can't gamble on baseball. So he was not going to put himself in that, clear black and white zone. So he gambled on NFL, college football, other sports, NBA. Right. Even if that was Shohei's gambling, I think the only rule he is violating is even if you do gamble, you can't make gambles with illegal like offshore bets, offshore books, or illegal bookies. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You have to do it through legal ways.
Right.
Prize Picks, which is not gambling. Daily Fantasy. DraftKings, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm not even really sure if Shohei was to be guilty, how bad of a crime he is guilty of. That was my takeaway from all this. And the interpreter really fucked up.
Yeah, well, he got fired.
He got fired. Yeah. You know what his salary was?
It was probably a pretty penny.
Between $300,000 and $500,000.
Just for literally interpreting
just for speaking English and Japanese.
Yep.
What?
It's insane.
Like, that's the best job in the world.
All you have to do is literally just have your voice, just, drink some tea, add a little bit of honey with your toast.
You get to travel the country in the summer.
Yep.
You don't have to do anything.
Nope.
You get to watch baseball.
Yeah, it's not like you're having to freaking keep your body in shape. Yeah. It's literally just one of the easiest.
D. Coleman, what bookie allows a $4 million debt to accumulate? That's a fair point to raise. And, I mean, I've never gotten that far in debt in my gambling career.
I've never had a bookie, so I can't speak to that.
The worst that ever happened to me was I was like $150 down. Mm-hmm. So I bet $150 to get back to zero. And I had to bet on the only NBA game that was playing. And it was a Portland Trailblazers home game. Mm-hmm. So it was at 10 p.m. Eastern. So I put it all on them. And I, of course, didn't have NBA League Pass. So I'm just following the score updates. I was living in Tennessee at the time, Eastern time.
Yeah.
So it was 1 a.m. And I was just refreshing my ESPN app. And the game stopped for 30 minutes. And I had no idea why. Yeah. And I can't remember the guy's name. But it was the player on the Trailblazers who, basically Kevin Wared his leg. Horribly broke his knee or ankle.
Oh.
Do you remember his name?
I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And it was a very, gory scene.
Yeah.
And I was I woke up in the morning to find out that's what happened. Luckily, the Trailblazers covered 4.5. But I'm like, Jesus, that's what the delay was all for?
Do you know the time frame of this?
It would have been, January or February of 2019, I think.
That was Yusuf Nurkic. Yep.
That's it.
Yusuf Nurkic.
Yes.
Okay.
And then what was the score of the game? I think they won. By the way, it went to overtime and everything. They won in overtime, I think, by 4 or 5 points, and I had them I think by 4.5 or 3.5.
Yeah,
Maybe it was 3.5.
I
I think they were playing the Nuggets.
They were playing. It was against the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, against the
And
Nets.
it was a double overtime.
Double overtime.
Yeah.
And the score?
I'm still scrolling. Good Lord. Nurkic had 32 and 16
Yeah.
that game, helping his team clinch the 6th playoff. So they did win.
I knew they won.
Where's
I got back to 0, and that's as scary as it's ever been for
what
my
kind of article doesn't have the score to the game? I understand like that's not the story, but like you gotta have
at the
it.
bottom of something.
It's not there. Hold on, let me.
Someone needs to fact check this. I
I'm
need
about
to
to
know.
say this is. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna see if this next one. If not, then we'll just. And that's.
What year was this?
2019. It was March 26, 2019. 2019.
March 6th. I'm just looking at the schedule right now. Okay.
Maybe Yahoo
March
Sports
6th,
does.
2019. Ready?
Where is it? Oh yeah, it was 148 to 144. That was the score. Double overtime.
148
to 144.
Oh, I think I had him at 3.5 then.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember it was like right around 4.
There you go.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. If we don't get another super chat, and we'll say the next like 2 minutes or so, we will have to sign off. But I hope you appreciated the PD and Cullen podcast of my lowest gambling moments of my life.
Yeah. True story. Coop can attest to this.
I do have one more gambling story. It's really funny.
So I got one that's just kind of sad, but it's a true story. I was in high school,
Yeah.
obviously, and I was obviously a big Thunder fan. Really thought they were going to beat the Warriors at the time. And this was the year that LeBron and the Heat, or not the Heat, the Cavs came back down from 3-1. So I was so set that if the Thunder weren't going to win the Warriors, like whoever's coming out of the West, I was picking them to win the NBA Finals. I was in high school at the time. I bet a buddy of mine that me and Coop both know $500 on the Warriors winning that final
Against
series.
the Cavs?
Against the Cavs. And that was a series. Infamously, they went up 3-1.
Yep. Oh my
Draymond gets
God.
suspended. And LeBron goes on the craziest 3-game, arguably stretch of his career. I lose $500, and I haven't been the same since. Like, I've really stirred away from betting. I bet like a couple times since then, but nothing close.
That's nightmare
$500
fuel.
was my biggest loss.
My last job was small town radio in Wyoming,
Yep.
and I had a roommate. Found a roommate on Facebook.
Yeah.
Nice Mormon dude named Tyrell,
Nice.
and he did not have an interest in sports.
Okay.
Every Sunday, I'd watch NFL football, right?
Mhm.
I had 2 TVs, red zone, the game, everything.
Yeah.
And I was not getting off the couch for 7 hours of commercial-free football.
Yeah.
I would try to get him to watch football with me to kind of have a buddy,
Yeah.
but he had no interest. He'd go to church, he'd go work out, he'd go do his errands. He'd watch for 2 or 3 minutes, but he didn't have an interest at all. So I got him interested by saying, "Hey, do you want to bet on these games?" Like, I don't gamble. I was like, "Don't worry, I'll make the bets for you. If they lose, I cover the losses. If they win, you get the winnings.
So there's no
There's
fallback.
no risk. You could
Yeah.
just win."
Yeah.
And I paid the rent, so he just Venmoed me the rent.
Mhm.
So I just subtracted it from his rent. So you can basically get rent free. And he's like, "All right, but how do you bet?" So I explained to him how the spreads, the over-unders, the money line work. He was a smart guy, so he picked it up kind of quickly. But he didn't know any of the teams. And so he started it around week 3 or week 4. And this was the year of, this is fall of 2020.
Yep.
And so he quickly learned the Jets were a bad football team. So he just hammered the money line
Every time.
against the Jets, which is the year the Jets did not win a game. Remember, it was them and the Jags competing for Trevor Lawrence. And then they had that stupid win
Against the Rams.
against the Rams.
I remember that.
The Rams were good that year.
Yeah.
He comes back from church, and he's like, "How are my Rams doing?" And I'm like, "Dude, you got to sit down. What you just experienced was your first upset. The Jets won." And he went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows.
Wow.
He didn't lose any money,
Right.
but he also he lost all of his winnings
Yeah.
with that one. So he's got back to 0. But that
So he
was a story. That was a time I'll never forget.
So he just kept letting it ride the entire
He would
season?
do little parlays. He would sprinkle other things in there.
Yeah.
But the Jets were
Or
his,
like the guarantee.
because he was like, "Oh, the
Yeah.
Jets suck. I'll bet against them." And I didn't think the Jets were going to lose the first 12 or 13 games of the season. He just kept getting after it. And he wasn't just doing money. Like, he would take, like, the opposing team's spread.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, let's do that and that. And then just kept winning. Maybe, like, a loss here or there, but, like,
For the most part,
he was doing much better than I was.
Yeah.
All right. That will do it for us on our live show today. Tyrell, if you're watching, it was a magical football season we had together.
Yeah.
And once the Jets lost, he stopped watching. Or once the Jets won, he stopped watching. It was a great time. It was a ball. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Always appreciate people who take time out of their Thursday. One last time, though. Next week is Wednesday. Same time, just different day. We'll see you then.